everyone! Welcome to part 1 of the Granny Square Cocoon Cardigan Crochet-a-long and tutorial video series. My name is Emily, your guide behind the camera of Doodle and Strings. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions about what supplies we will need for the pattern and details on how to choose yarn and hooks, please watch my introduction video that will be linked in the banner above and also in the description below. So before we jump into the pattern, let's do a supply check to make sure we have everything that we need. First, we're going to need to take some measurements. So for our pattern, our finished granny square needs to be at least half as tall as the intended wear of the cardigan, plus an extra 2 inches or so. This is important to determine how many yards of yarn we're going to need. So take a moment to divide your height in inches by half and then add 2. Write this down so that we can reference it later. So for me, I'm 5'7", so that's 67 inches. I'm going to divide that in half, which is 33.5, and then add 2, which gives me a total of 35.5 inches. So just for ease of measuring, I'm going to round that up to 36 inches. So since that's going to be on the larger side of a square, I'm going to estimate that I'm going to need about 1,300 yards of yarn. Now, if you're shorter, you'll need less. If you're taller, you'll need more. Sometimes if you're larger, you'll probably need more. It just depends. So just take your height, divide it by 2, add 2 inches. So in general, I always recommend that you get a little extra yarn because a lot of times things happen and you need that little bit extra, and you don't want to end up almost finishing your square and then, oh no, I'm out and I can't order anymore, or I can't go get any more. So always err on the higher side. If you're taller than 5'7", maybe go up to 1,500 yards. If you have extra yarn, you can always return it or just hang on to it for another project. So the yarn that I'm going to be using today for our project is Burnout Premium. The reason I chose this is it's just easy to get a hold of, so even the most beginner can find this yarn. It's pretty good, and I wanted to make sure that everyone could have a chance to try out this pattern. So we're going to use Burnout Premium. You can get this at Walmart. So now that we've talked about yarn and everything, let's make sure we have everything else. I'm going to be using a Susan Bates J hook or a 6mm hook for this project. You can use whatever hook works for you, whatever size works for your yarn. The great thing about this pattern is that gauge is not super important. What's important is that we get to that finished measurement we talked about. So if you want to go up to a K hook to make it a little more drapey, that's fine. Or if you want to go down to make it a little denser, or if you're using a finer yarn, that's totally fine. But for me, I'm going to be using a Susan Bates J hook. Also need to make sure that we have scissors handy, stitch marker in case you need it to keep an eye on where your row is, as well as a darning needle, which is just a big fat chunky needle. All right, so now that we have everything that we need, let's get to it. All right, the first step of our pattern is we're going to do a magic loop. Now, magic loops are pretty awesome and they're pretty easy, so let's get to it. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take the end of your yarn like this. You're going to lay it over the first 3 fingers, just like this. Then we're going to take what's called the working yarn, which is the yarn that's coming out of the ball, and we're going to wrap it behind, over, across the top. And then I usually pin it with my thumb right where we're crossing. You want to make sure you cross and then pin it with your thumb. So then I'll take it, I'll wrap it around. Sometimes I'll hold it with my pinky. You just do whatever feels comfortable. So now we have 2 loops. We have the tighter loop that we're holding and then the working yarn that's right here. So we want to take our hook, sliding it underneath the loop part to hook our working yarn, just like this. Gonna hook it, kind of twist and pull up a loop. Now if you're holding it with your pinky like this, it makes it really easy. To lock our loop in place, we need to make another slip stitch. So we want to pull, or a chain. So we want to pull another one through our loop. And that's the start. So doing that chain just kind of helps lock the loop in place. See, now I can kind of let it dangle and it's not going to fall apart. So the next step in our pattern is to do a chain 3. So since we already did our first chain, we only need to do 2. So we're going to go, so it's 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to be working on the inside of our magic loop. So we want to make sure that we have our little yarn dangly and our loop together because we're going to be working over both strands. The magic loop won't work unless it's over both strands. So the next part is to do 2 double crochets inside of our loop. 1, and then 2. All right, there's our first cluster. So in this pattern and throughout, the chain 3 is going to count as a double crochet. And so for granny square, we're going to be working these 3 double crochet clusters just throughout and around and around. So now that we have our first one done, we're going to chain 2, and we need to do 3 more of those little clusters. So it's going to be 3 double crochets in the loop. 1, 2, and 3. All right, there's our second little cluster group. So we're going to chain 2 again, 1, 2, and do another group of 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3. So we have 1, 2, 3 groups of 3 right now, so we need to do our 4th. So we're going to chain 2 again, 1, 2, and do 3 more double crochets. 2 and 3. So to finish our square, we're going to need 1 more chain 2 space. So we have 1, 2, 3, now we need our 4th. So we're going to chain 2 more. Now before we hook into the top of our chain 3, we're going to do our magic loop. And what makes this magic is when we pull this yarn, it's going to tighten everything up really nice. Don't pull too hard, just kind of gently nudge it in. And there you go, a nice tight little square. So to finish our round, we need to slip stitch into the top of our chain 3. So here's our chain 3. It's 1, 2, 3. We're going to get our hook right in there. I'm going to slip stitch just like that. Awesome. So now you can see the start of our little square. We have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 double crochet clusters, and 1, 2, 3, 4 chain 2. So that's our very first round. All right, moving on to round 2. We're going to start just like we will with every single round with a chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now some granny squares will just have you keep going around in a circle, but we're not going to do that. We're going to turn our work just like this. So our little yarn end is going to be facing us. The reason we're turning our work for this is that if you keep going around and around just the same direction, your granny square is going to turn out to be slanted, and we don't want a slanted granny square when we're wearing our nice cardigan. So we're going to be turning every single round. So the first thing after we chain 3 and turn, we're going to be working into our first corner. So every corner will have 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. But our first one, since our chain 3 counts as a double crochet, we're only going to do 2. So let's start with 2 double crochets in our first chain 2 corner. So now we have a chain 3 and 2, so it's going to be our first little grouping. Now we're going to chain 2 and do 3 more in the same chain 2 space to work our corner. 2, 3. So there's our first corner. Now we're going to chain 1, and that chain 1 is going to be the beginning of our side, the side of our square. So we chain 1, and then we're going to work another corner, which is a 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet in the chain 2 space. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3. Nice. So you can see our first side. So we've got corner, side, corner. You can see the beginning of our square. So let's keep going. So now we're at our side again. So we're going to chain 1 and then work another corner. So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 3 double crochet, 1, oops, get back here, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. All right, so there's our second side. Let's chain 1 because that'll work this side, and then we're going to do another corner. So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3. So to complete our square, we're going to do one more side. So we're going to chain 1, and now we're going to slip stitch into the top of our chain 3 right here. Now, the reason I said stitch markers is that if you're having trouble finding this chain 3, you can slide a stitch marker in here at the beginning of each round to help you mark it and just find it. I'm not going to do that because I can usually see it, so we're going to just do our chain 1 and then slip stitch into the top of chain 3. And that completes round 2. So now we're on to round 3. So just like our previous rounds, we're going to start with a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to turn our work. So now the yarn dangly is facing away from us. So in the previous rounds, we've gone straight to our corners, but now we have our side, which was our chain 1s from the previous round. So the first thing we're going to do is do 2 double crochets inside of this chain 1 space. 1, 2. So there's our first little group because our chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So we're going to finish our side and continue onto our first corner. So we're going to chain 1 and then do our corner, which is 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and then 1, 2, 3. All right, that finishes our first corner. So now we're going to work on our first side. So the first thing we do is we chain 1, and then we're going to be working into the chain 1 space from the previous round, which is right here. We're going to be doing 3 double crochets in this space. 1, 2, 3. To complete our first side, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to work into this corner by doing the 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and then 1, 2, 3. Right, that finishes that side. So let's work on the next side. To start, we're going to chain 1 and then work into this chain 1 space again by doing 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. So finishing our side, we'll chain 1 and then work another corner. So 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet into the corner. 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3. So finishes that side. Let's do another one. We're going to chain 1 and then 3 double crochets in the chain 1 space. 1. Sometimes you can get little knots in the yarn, and that happens. There you go. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. And then our corner. So now we're working into the corner space. So we did 3 double crochet, chain 1, and now 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets for our corner. Should be our final corner in this round. 1, and 2, and 3. All right, to finish our round, all we need to do is do a chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch into the top of our chain 3. There we go. So that finishes round 3. So for the rest of our pattern, we're basically going to be repeating round 3. So what's happening is that our square is increasing by 1 of these chain 1 spaces per side. So let's do one more round together so that you can see how it's increased. So we're going to begin like we have every row with the chain 3, 2, 3, and then we turn. And then we're going to work into this first chain 1 space by doing 2 double crochets because we're just starting the round. 1, 2. Now we work into our first corner. So we do a chain 1 and then 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the corner. Chain 2, 1, 2, and 3. All right, there's our first corner. So now we'll chain 1. So now, as you can see, we have 2 chain 1 spaces. So we're going to work 3 double crochet because we chain 1, so 3 double crochet in the chain 1 space below. 1, 2, 3. And so now we're going to chain 1 again, work another 3 double crochets in the next chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to chain 1 again. Now we're at our corner. So that's the 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, then chain 2, and then another 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and then 3. All right, there's our first side, as you can see. And see how we're increasing? So our last round we just did 2, but if you look ahead, now we have 3. 1, 2, 3. So every round, you're going to be increasing 1 on every single side of these chain 1 spaces. So for every side, you're always going to chain 1, 3 in the space, chain 1, 3 in the space. The only chain 2s that you have are when you're working your corners. So let's keep going. We're on to our next side. So we're going to chain 1, work 3 double crochets in the chain 1 space below. So 1, 2, 3, chain 1, then we're going to work 3 more in this chain 1 space below. So 1, 2, 3, chain 1. Now we're at our corner. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3. There's our next side, as you can see. All right, let's do the next side. We're going to start with the chain 1, and then working in our first chain 1 space, we're going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. So we have another space, so we're going to chain 1 again and work another 3 double crochets in the chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1 to complete the side, and then we're going to work into this corner. So it's 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, just like the previous rounds. 1, 2, and then 3 more double crochets. 2, 3. Great. Now we're going to finish this side by doing another chain 1, and we got to work into this space before we can hook onto our chain 3. So we need to do 3 more double crochet in the chain 1 space below. 2, 3, and then we're going to chain 1 and then slip stitch into the top of chain 3 to finish our round. So for the rest of the pattern, for our square, we're just going to keep going round and round in the same way with the chaining 3, you turn, and then you're going to keep working your sides. So you'll be, every chain 1 space gets 3 double crochets, and then you chain 1 and keep going down the side. So 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, chain 1. And every corner is the 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And you just keep going round and round and round until your square measures the same as the, meets the measurement that we took earlier for your size. So as you can see, we have this really nice, even square. Looks beautiful. So just keep going. Find a movie, find a show, because it can get a little bit slow going once your square starts getting bigger and you have like a ton on each side. But you'll get there. Just keep going, and I will see you in the next video when we're going to do the seaming. See you then. Thank you for watching. If you like this video and want to see more tutorials and crochet-alongs, please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell as well so that you know when every new video comes out. If you have a request for a tutorial or a specific video, please comment below. I love to read your comments, and I can't wait to get started on another fun